Science, Dignity, and the Dawkins Debate. The renewed argument over sex, gender, and identity, sparked lately by remarks from figures like Richard Dawkins, exposes a larger cultural difficulty. Both people and societies struggle to hold two truths at once. Biology is real, and human dignity is crucial to flourishing communities. Mystrikism is built and endeavors to keep both lights on. We stand on two uncompromising pillars, scientific honesty and justice infused with compassion, and we treat them as daily practices rather than slogans. We do not trade one off against the other. We insist on both. First, empirical clarity. Sex is undeniably biological, tethered to reproductive roles, chromosomes, and gametes, and that reality matters in some domains. Gender is a sociocultural, psychological, and personal construct which influences how people understand and express themselves across time and context. Conflating the two breeds confusion. Distinguishing them is the start of wisdom. Mystrikism therefore recognizes sex as an objective, immutable, biological category, while affirming gender identity and expression as a lived, subjective human reality. We support any sapient/sentient being's right to express their identity, including our purposeful use of preferred names, titles, and pronouns, and we defend an adult's right to pursue medical transition. Second, context. Because sex is materially relevant in specific settings, fairness in sport, safeguarding private spaces, aspects of healthcare, incarceration, and some legal protections, policy should reflect those realities without vilifying anyone. Evidence-sensitive design is not a denial of identity, it is a commitment to accuracy and safety alongside dignity. Third, perspective. The visible expansion of trans and gender identities and broader, more fluid expression of gender, especially in liberal democracies with greater expressive freedom, can appear new or sudden. A convergence of factors: technology, expanded civil liberties, social media, rising acceptance of alternative sexual orientations, and improvements in sexual equality has amplified visibility. When change arrives quickly, the public can mistake novelty for pathology. While a small minority of cases may reflect or be complicated by underlying mental health conditions, this does not generalize to the whole and calls for compassionate, evidence-based care. The more reasonable reading is an unveiling rather than an invention. Forms of expression, perhaps long present, now allowed daylight. The unbiased research landscape here is still severely underdeveloped and hotly contested in places, which calls for deeper objective inquiry and epistemic humility as stronger longitudinal evidence accumulates. Mystrikism explicitly commits to revising conclusions as new information emerges, while keeping our priorities and methods, truth-seeking and well-being, constant. Richard Dawkins's position, stated in recent essays and interviews, is that biological sex is a binary defined by gamete type, a universal rule across species, and that public discourse gets muddled when sex and gender are combined and confused. He has also expressed respect for people who undertake transition, arguing that its seriousness stems precisely from the biological reality of sex, while objecting to attempts to revise scientific definitions for ideological reasons. In our reading, his recent interventions were attempts to state biological facts, not to demean anyone. In a secular, scientific culture, the right to point out objective, well-supported facts should be protected, yet at the same time, precision and diplomacy matter, and we can ask for more diplomatic prefacing and phrasing without demanding silence. This stance has sat at the center of recent disputes. In 2021, the American Humanist Association revoked his 1996 Humanist of the Year award, citing statements it viewed as demeaning under the guise of scientific discourse. And in December 2024, he resigned from the Freedom from Religion Foundation's honorary board after the group pulled a colleague's article defending a biological definition of woman, with Steven Pinker also stepping down in protest. Mystrikism overlaps with Dawkins on the empirical point. Sex is a biological category and scientific clarity matters, yet parts ways on translation into norms. We bind our oughts to measured well-being, so we affirm gender self-expression, the use of chosen names, titles, and pronouns, and evidence-sensitive policy that protects dignity, safety, and honesty together. We support Dawkins's right to articulate biological facts while encouraging everyone in this debate, him included, to pair definitional rigor with basic courtesy and care for human dignity. We read Dawkins charitably as defending definitional exactitude, and we broaden that scrupulousness into compassionate practice. As always, we remain committed to updating both policy and rhetoric as understanding advances. How does that frame the current dispute? One can agree with the biological description of sex and still reject any rhetoric that treats trans lives as an erroneous aberration. The descriptive fact does not settle the ethical question. Mystrikism handles the is-ought bridge by asking what, in practice, reduces suffering and promotes flourishing, then binding our oughts to outcomes. Even if we disagree about what gender really is, our approach is simple. Live and let live. Protect adults' freedom to live as they choose and their access to care that works. Treat people with everyday courtesy and base policy on real-world harms and benefits, not on forcing everyone to share the same beliefs. Our stance, then, is neither factional nor evasive. We welcome people of every background and identity. There is no place for prejudice in our union. We insist, at the same time, on the integrated methods of science as our most honest and reliable tool for seeing reality clearly, and on justice as our guiding ethic for acting within it. In disputes like this, we therefore counsel steadiness, speak truth without cruelty, extend care without self-deception, and let policy follow evidence while protecting the dignity of all.